for you guys. What's going on with guys not approaching women anymore? Like, if I make eye contact with you and you're checking me out and you're staring at me for like 10 minutes, I don't know, maybe stop being creepy and come up and say hello? I don't know. Food for thought. Like, why aren't you guys approaching women anymore? Like, I was at a bar and everyone is in their own groups, not approaching strangers. Like, not one guy, not even just for me, not one guy went up to a girl and just started talking to her. It was so weird.
I think the first thing you have to realize when it comes to this conversation, when you're talking about weird and, you know, all the subjective terminology she's using, she could have seen a guy from across the room and she could have very well thought that he was really, really creepy. But from that guy's perspective, he could have been thinking that he was given, you know, the lustful, smoky eye. It's this sort of subjectivity that makes it really, really difficult. It makes it really, really nuanced. I think it's also important to understand that not every dude has the same level of interpersonal skills and confidence. Rejection is a very real thing when you're talking about courting women. And I find a lot of women, you know, including my wife, when we talk about stuff like this, she doesn't really understand what that feels like. For most guys, we know that rejection is part of the deal. And some guys, when it comes to courting women, that's just what it is. You just associate rejection with that courting process. And it's not a 50-50 situation. It's usually like a 90% chance that you're going to be rejected. It's usually a 50% chance that that's going to come with some sort of crushing blow to your self-esteem. And again, this varies based on your setting, but it's usually a high risk, low reward situation. You also got to consider where people have options to court women. With Tinder and social media these days, there is a much easier way to compile your list of options without having to approach women. And I think a lot of dudes are opting for that strategy. It usually comes with less rejection and less awkward, self-esteem crushing interactions. But that would probably be my more jaded response if I had to answer the question. But let's continue.
And I'm like, how am I supposed to meet people?
Not my problem.
So it's been brought to my attention that men no longer want to come up to women anymore due to sex allegations, women being just so rude and disrespectful, and rejection. I didn't know that was a thing. I didn't know men didn't want to come up to women anymore. I'm barely finding this out. Why do women choose to cuss guys out when they come up to them and approach them? I have no idea. I apologize for that. But there's just too many fine men. And if it takes me, the women, having to come up to you guys and shooting my shot, saying what's up, being the big stepper, then I'll just have to do that. And I'm going to just start coming up to you guys and shooting out compliments and see where it takes me. So if I start coming up to y'all in the grocery store and I say, excuse me, sir, you are just so sexy, I want a response. Okay, I don't want none of that shy stuff.
Go for it.
I think what we are finding in today's society is that there are a lot of old, antiquated courting methods that have since been deemed problematic for good reason. There's the old Pepe Le Pew archetype where dudes felt like they could be touchy-feely, they could be aggressive with their advances, and they could essentially invade a woman's personal space without any sort of ramification. There's also the old archetype where, you know, the strategy was, let me just bombard this woman with drinks, loosen up her inhibitions, and then seal the deal that way. A lot of that has been problematic. And when you have a world where we are actually holding men accountable for receiving full consent, I think there is a recalibration that's needed to sort of make sure that you are coming correct. And so for some men, that deterrent and that inability to sort of figure it out or be confident with the approach has sort of deterred them from approaching altogether. You know, and I know it sounds a little bizarre, like really you can't approach a woman without SA. There really are some dudes out there that came up under the school of Johnny Bravo and really have no idea, you know, how to deviate from those teachings. So just keep that in mind. Some men out here are lacking in that department. But let's hear from Morgan Freeman. Morgan Freeman actually has some interesting advice, and I want to get you guys' feedback on that as well. Here's Morgan.
I've always felt you're a natural ladies' man, in the sense that women really love you. The women I know who know you adore you. And you always seem to have a natural affinity around women. Would you accept that?
Yes. I absolutely adore women. I just do. I'm a mama's boy. I absolutely love women. But Now, I also have an abiding respect for them. I think that's what comes across more than, I'm not what you would call a ladies' man.
No.
I'm not a real big skirt chaser.
A small-time skirt chaser?
There is a secret I'll tell you after the show.
Go on, what's the secret?
Don't chase women.
Really?
They'll chase you.
Is that your strategy?
Yeah.
Does it work?
Works very well. I'm going to get in trouble for saying this because...
Explore this technique for me. So what is the technique of letting them chase you? How do you make yourself known as potentially available?
Just don't do it. Don't, you meet a lady, you express to her how wonderful she looks or how you respond to the way she looks or whatever it is, and then go on about your business.
And does it ever
They're
fail?
curious, they're like horses in a pasture sometimes. You walk into a pasture and the horse sees you. He's coming over to investigate. And if you see a lady and you don't go, drooling all over her, she's going to want to know why.
So you've basically a lifetime of non-drooling has been a successful strategy.
Yeah, it works fine.
Any other tips?
You need to have a large amount of respect for ladies. They respond very well to that.
How are you dealing with being a single man again after a long time married?
This has happened before. What happens generally is that sort of like, oh, he's back. So then you're sort of at, you're in a good position. So now, ladies.
Two things about Morgan Freeman's advice. A lot of this is going to apply mainly to individuals with a certain level of get this out of my face. With a certain level of affluence or social status. Obviously, that casual approach can work. I have seen some success with the casual approach, but I would argue that the casual approach tends to work when you have more opportunities with the women, like usually when they're in close proximity. If you're in a situation where you only see a woman, you're only going to see a woman once, or it's your first time encountering a woman in a situation, that might not work. I also think it's pretty nuanced because in 2023, there's these women like you, they like you to be overt with it. I think there's a growing circulation, a population of younger ladies that, want you to sort of come on strong, because there's a lot of individuals, a lot of dudes that are coming on strong. And if you don't, come on strong with that cash app, you don't come on strong with, being willing to extend financial benefits. For some women, not all, you can disqualify yourself fairly quickly. Fairly quickly. I also think that when it comes to the let women chase you thing, I think it kind of goes back to what I was speaking to earlier, just about how sometimes courting women can sort of put you in a hierarchical place where they put you beneath them a little bit. Again, not all, but it's weird psychologically how not approaching kind of gives off the mystique that, oh my gosh, he's not fazed by a beautiful woman. That makes me want him even more. Oh my gosh. But again, it's very tricky because these days you're not just competing on a one-to-one basis. You compete with a lot of dudes, and a lot of dudes are going to be aggressive. A lot of dudes are going to be coming with that cash app. It's tough out here. It's very tough out here. So the approach for Morgan Freeman, and a lot of relationship gurus out here that they might be preaching to you guys is build yourself up and they will come. If you build it, they will come. And, as a guy who looks at courting, as a very risky thing that could, potentially lead you in some rejection, this could be the strategy that you implement. Become Batman. The P. Diddy approach. Become these guys, then evaluate your options. But, there's some problems with that as well.
Men, why are you don't pursue anymore? What's up?
That is a great question. And in my experience, I learned really fast in the dating world that if I pursued a woman, they lost interest for whatever reason. And I discovered that if I just became a little bit more hard to get and more into myself, that I had more success with women. So to answer your question, why men don't pursue women anymore, it's because we just got in contact with a lot of bad women who taught us that's the way to be successful. And we forgot there's a small minority of good women like yourself who like the traditional pursuit, but we don't encounter enough of you. You're like the 10% of the 100 out there. So that is why men don't pursue anymore, because we know 9 times out of 10, they'll lose interest.
Like I said, man, I have found this to be true. I have found this to be true. And I'll speak on my anecdote here. Most people would see me and think that I'm a relatively attractive-ish kind of guy. I would consider myself handsome-ish, right? I have experienced this dynamic so many times. There is this experience that a lot of us guys feel like me courting you is just going to give you express license to be rude. It's going to give you express license to just treat me like, you know, I'm a plaything for your ego. And I wouldn't say that this is all women, but for guys that may not have that same fortitude and resilience for that process, it can be very discouraging, and it could prevent you from courting women in excess. I think that in order for us to get to a space where men are courting women more, I just think we have to create and cultivate a lot more healthy environment out there. I mean, with the majority of relationships now starting online, with everybody being so used to instant gratification, being able to field all of their options conveniently, safely, without the fear of rejection, without really needing to introduce yourself to anyone face to face. These whole old courting mechanisms are becoming antiquated, you know, and you go into these environments, most places, you know, where people are expecting some sort of courtship, you know, they can be a little problematic. I mean, we're talking about the bar. I mean, people are drinking. It's a little tricky because, again, you're talking about being able to get consent. It's a very odd formula there. It's allowed if you're at a club, you know what I'm saying? If you're at school, you know, it's one of those things where it's really tricky because, you know, it's an environment where you're supposed to be learning. And obviously a lot of women that are looking outside of their school environment because of the options that they have. You know, it is just a very tricky, sticky situation out there. So I would say that in terms of men out there, for all you guys that are looking for advice on this, I would say that to build yourself up and to court women that are in alignment with the path and the thing that you're trying to do. You know, if you see women that, you know, within your proximity, within your lane, within your craft that you're interested in, that you have a respect for, you know what I'm saying? Try those women. You know, you have more opportunities there. You have more opportunities to sort of cultivate real relationships. You already have a baseline of general respect. You know, those would be the women that I would be courting. I would be doing my thing, and the women that I saw along my path would be the ones that would be in my option set. I wouldn't be going out of my way to go to a bar. At least me, I wouldn't be going to no bars and stuff like that to try to find women. And there's also the approach, you know, there's the P. Diddy Batman approach. You know what I'm saying? Build yourself up, you know, as high as you can, and then wait until you get up there to see what your options are. I like the idea of building with a woman from ground up, but you know, with the way that this economy looks, with the way that people are sort of sorting their options these days, maybe that's not as viable as it used to be. Maybe it is a space where people are going to have to develop who they are first, and then field their options at that point. Whether you think that's a good thing or not, we all got to adapt. I don't like the internet thing where it's like everybody is looking at each other in terms of swipe lefts and swipe rights, but you know, at the end of the day, everybody's just trying to find love. Everybody's trying to find love, but you know, everybody's also trying to avoid rejection too. So you know, I think that's the tricky part. But ladies, I would love to hear from you guys on this. I would love to hear what a good approach is. I would love to hear, you know, your advice for some of the young brothers out there in this current day and age. I think, you know, I could give advice, but you know, I've been married for a long time. I've been taken for a very long time. So I don't think I have a lot of value to offer this conversation aside from the nuances. And fellas, you know, share in the comment section what your experiences are, what your, you know, with women. Do you approach? Are you still open to approaching? You know, I'd love to hear from you guys on this. All right. Hopefully you guys are having a great week. It's been TP Locks signing out.